My son looked at me with pure contempt and said, "Here is $100 for you, Dad, for your coffee." Everyone laughed. I was wearing a borrowed suit that smelled strongly of mothballs. I had lost so much weight that I almost did not recognize myself. Daniel was smiling. He was sure he would inherit the $178 million from his dead mother. He was sure that I was nothing. He was sure that he had won. Until the lawyer opened the sealed envelope and read the first line. Daniel's smile froze instantly. And when the lawyer turned to the second page, his face went white as a sheet. Because Emily knew. She knew everything. She knew what he did to me the day he left me to die alone on my kitchen floor. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe. Every day I share a story that could be yours. It could be your father's story or the story of someone you love. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. My name is David. I am 74 years old. When I stepped out of the taxi in front of that black glass building downtown, I knew it was going to be the worst day of my life. The navy blue suit I was wearing belonged to my brother-in-law, Robert. It was my sister Linda's husband. It was too big in the shoulders, and it smelled like mothballs. She had ironed it for me that morning while I drank watery coffee in her kitchen. "David, look at me," she told me, grabbing my face with her rough hands. "That boy is not going to humiliate you. Do you hear me? You are not going to allow it." I nodded, but we both knew it was a lie. Daniel had been humiliating me for years, and I had been enduring it for years. The doorman of the building looked me up and down when I walked in. He said nothing, but his face said everything. I did not belong in that place. People like me did not walk through the front door. I gritted my teeth and walked toward the elevators with my head held high, even though inside I was dying. It was him who visited me in the hospital every single day. "If that jerk treats you bad, you tell me. I will go in there and beat him up. I do not care." I smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You cannot go in, Henry. Only direct family." He looked at me with those eyes that had seen everything in life. "I am more family to you than that son you have." And he was right. But blood is blood, even if that blood is killing you from the inside. The receptionist pointed me to a frosted glass door at the end of the hall. "Office number 3. They are already waiting for you." It sounded like a reproach. I was 5 minutes late because the taxi had gotten lost. I took a deep breath. I knocked on the door and entered. The air conditioning hit me in the face like a slap. The office was huge. It was all glass and steel with a view of the city that made you feel small. And there they all were. Daniel was at the head of that giant dark mahogany table wearing a gray suit that fit him perfectly. He was checking his phone as if I had not just walked in. Sarah, his wife, was on his right wearing a black dress that showed her crossed legs and those sunglasses she never took off. Catherine, her mother-in-law, was on the other side with her hair perfectly combed and a gold cross hanging from her neck. Pamela, the stepdaughter of Emily, was sitting further away with a serious face and her hands on the table. An attorney, Arthur Stone, a man with a white mustache and an impeccable suit, was standing next to the head of the table. "Mr. David, come in. Please take a seat." He pointed to a chair. It was the furthest one, almost in the corner, as if I were the guest nobody wanted but had to tolerate. I walked toward that chair, feeling how everyone was staring at me. Sarah whispered something to Daniel. He smiled without looking up from his phone. Catherine took a handkerchief from her purse and brought it to her nose, as if my presence smelled bad. I sat down slowly and carefully, as if the chair were going to break under my weight, and then Daniel looked at me. He finally looked at me. But there was nothing in those eyes. Nothing. No love. No hate. Not even contempt. Just emptiness. As if I were a stranger. A procedure he had to endure. I remembered when he was 5 years old and fell off his bicycle in the park. Blood was running down his knee, and he was crying as if the world were ending. I carried him. I hugged him. I told him everything was going to be okay. "Do not let go of me, Dad. Do not ever let go." And I promised him I never would, but he let go of me, a long time ago. Attorney Stone opened a folder and was about to speak when Daniel raised his hand. "Before we start, I want to clarify something." He leaned back in his chair, put his hands on the table, and looked at me with that smile I knew. The smile of someone who has already won. "Here is $100 for you, Dad. For your coffee." He said it calmly, almost kindly, as if he were doing me a favor. Sarah let out a laugh that she tried to hide with a cough. Catherine shook her head. "Poor thing," she murmured, but I do not know if she was talking about me or Daniel. I felt the blood rushing to my face. My hands were shaking. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask him when he had become this. But I did nothing. I just squeezed my hands on my knees until my knuckles turned white, and I thought about what Linda had told me that morning. Do not let them humiliate you. But it was too late. They had already done it. Sarah leaned toward Daniel and whispered something in his ear. Whatever she said made him laugh again. Then she turned to me. She lowered her dark glasses to the tip of her nose and said with that sweet voice she used when she wanted to be cruel, "Oh, Mr. David, I thought you were not going to come. Did you have enough for the taxi, or did you have to walk here?" Daniel laughed louder. Catherine sighed deeply and said, looking at the ceiling, "What a shame, really. This should be private. A family matter, right? I do not understand why he has to be here." She pointed her finger at me as if I were a piece of furniture out of place. Pamela looked at them with something like disgust, but said nothing. She just looked down, and I sat there in that borrowed suit that smelled of mothballs, feeling how every word was burying me deeper and deeper. But something inside me, something small and almost extinguished, told me to wait. It told me that this was not over yet. Attorney Stone cleared his throat loudly to call for order. "If you allow me, we can begin." He opened a large manila envelope, closed with a red wax seal. It was Emily's seal. I recognized that seal immediately. It was the one she used for important things. I had seen it only twice in my life. When we signed the deed to our first house and when we signed the divorce papers. The lawyer turned the envelope so we could all see the date written by hand in blue ink. April 13th, 2025. 3 months before she died. The silence in the office changed. It was no longer a mocking silence. It was a tense silence. Daniel put his phone on the table. Sarah took off her dark glasses. Catherine sat up straight in her chair. Everyone looked at that envelope as if it were a bomb about to explode, and I just breathed. Slow and deep, because something told me that Emily had done something. Something none of them expected. The lawyer broke the seal with a silver letter opener. The sound was dry like a snap of fingers. He took out several papers, all perfectly folded with official seals and signatures at the bottom. He adjusted his glasses on his nose and began to read with a clear voice without rushing. "I, Emily Christina Stone, widow of Lara, in full use of my mental faculties and without any coercion, declare the following as my last will and testament." He paused, looked at Daniel, then at me, and continued. "My total assets evaluated as of today amount to $178 million distributed in properties, stocks, long-term investments, and national and international bank accounts. 178 million. My God. I had no idea Emily had accumulated so much." Daniel smiled. That wide smile, full of white, perfect teeth. Sarah squeezed his hand. Catherine sighed with relief. And I just thought about how hard Emily had worked to get there, how much she had fought and how much it hurt me not to have been by her side when she achieved it. But then the lawyer said something that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. However, he looked up from the papers and looked at us all one by one with that face of a lawyer who knows something others do not. "Missus, Emily left certain specific conditions stipulated that must be met mandatorily before any delivery, transfer, or assignment of inheritance." Daniel frowned. "Conditions? What conditions?" His voice sounded annoyed, as if someone were wasting his time. The lawyer did not answer him. He kept reading. "These conditions are irrevocable, verifiable through documentary and testimonial evidence, and failure to comply will result in the total or partial loss of the assets assigned to the corresponding beneficiary." Sarah let go of Daniel's hand. Catherine opened her mouth but said nothing. Pamela leaned forward with her eyes wide open, and I felt something in my chest loosen up, as if after a long time I could breathe a little better. Daniel tried to stay calm, but I saw his legs start to move under the table. That nervous tic he had since he was a child. "Well, okay, and what are those conditions?" He tried to sound casual as if he did not care, but his voice came out a little higher pitched than usual. Attorney Stone did not answer immediately. First he turned a page, then another, then one more. He was looking for something specific. The silence became unbearable. Pamela was biting her lip. Sarah was playing with her ring. Catherine took out her rosary and started passing it through her fingers, and I remembered something. That phone call. 2 months before she died. Emily had called me at the hospital. I had just come out of intensive care. She was crying. "David, forgive me. I did not know anything. I swear I did not know. And I did not understand what she was talking about. I am going to fix this," she told me. "I am going to fix everything." And she hung up. I never knew what she meant. Until now. The lawyer found the page he was looking for. He adjusted his glasses. He cleared his throat again. And he read slowly, measuring every word as if they were bullets. These conditions have to do with specific events that occurred between the years 2019 and 2023, directly related to the treatment behavior and actions of Mr. Daniel Alverde toward his father, Mr. Height, David Alverde. And then he turned to look at me, only at me, and everyone in that office also turned to look at me. Daniel went white, just like that in a second, as if someone had drained all the blood from his face. Sarah stopped breathing. Catherine closed her eyes and crossed herself. Pamela covered her mouth with her hand, and I could only think one thing. Emily knew. Emily knew everything he did to me. And now, from wherever she was giving me back something I thought I had lost forever. My dignity. Attorney Stone took a deep breath and read the first condition with a voice that left no room for doubt. Mr. Daniel Alverde will only be able to receive the part of the inheritance that corresponds to him if he demonstrates through documentary, testimonial, and verifiable evidence that he was constantly present during the last days of his mother's life, specifically during her hospitalization at St. Mary's Hospital between June 15th and June 27th of 2025. The lawyer paused. Daniel cleared his throat. He adjusted himself in the chair, and he said with that fake confidence I knew so well, I was there. Every day. He lifted his chin. I took care of her. I was the best son I could be. Sarah nodded quickly, supporting him. Yes, I accompanied him. We were both with her until the end. Lies. I knew they were lies. And something told me that Attorney Stone knew it too. But he let them talk. He let them dig their own grave. Daniel continued, now more animated, as if he believed his own lie. I arrived in the mornings. I brought her flowers. I read her the newspaper. I talked to her about everything. My mom knew I was there. He turned to Sarah. Right, honey. She nodded again. Of course. We even slept one night at the hospital so we would not leave her alone. Catherine intervened with that shrill voice. My son-in-law is a family man. He would never abandon his mother. Pamela looked at them with a mixture of disbelief and contempt, but she still said nothing. Attorney Stone waited for them to finish. Then, without changing his expression, he opened another folder. He took out a document with the hospital letterhead. He put it on the table facing Daniel. This is the official log of St. Mary's Hospital. His voice was cold as ice. Here all visits are recorded. Full names, entry and exit times, duration of stay. Daniel looked at the paper and I saw how his face started to change, as if something was collapsing inside him. The lawyer continued implacably. According to this log, certified and signed by the nursing staff, Mr. Daniel Alverde visited his mother only once during the 12 days of hospitalization. A pause. Once. Single. Time. Sarah stopped smiling. Catherine swallowed hard. Daniel opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The visit was on June 19th. Entry time 3:15 p.m. Exit time 4 p.m. 45 minutes in total. The lawyer looked up and locked his eyes on Daniel. And according to the sworn statement of Nurse Patricia Davis, that visit was not to accompany the patient. It was to ask her for money. The silence that followed was so heavy I felt the air turning solid. I just watched Daniel and saw how his hands were shaking, how his jaw was clenching, how he tried to find the words but could not find them. That is not true. Daniel finally spoke. His voice sounded strangled. I went more times. There has to be a mistake. He ran his hand through his hair. Maybe they did not register me. Maybe I came in through another entrance. The lawyer shook his head. The hospital has only one access for family members, and registration is mandatory without exceptions. Daniel stood up abruptly. I was busy. I had meetings. The business does not run itself, he shouted, and in that scream I heard desperation. Panic. I could not be there all the time. The lawyer waited for him to shut up. Your mother was in intensive care for 4 days in critical condition. The doctors notified all family members that she might not survive. He paused. And do you know how many times she asked for you? Daniel did not answer. She asked 18 times. Nurse Patricia documented it. 18 times, your mother asked, Is my son here yet? Did Daniel come? And no one could give her an answer. I felt something break in my chest. I imagined Emily in that hospital bed alone, connected to tubes and machines, waiting for a son who never arrived. And I remembered myself. All the times I waited for Daniel. The times I called him and he did not answer. The birthdays I spent alone looking at the phone, waiting for even a text message. Is my son coming yet? How many times had I asked the same thing? To Linda, to Henry, to no one in particular, waiting for someone to tell me yes, that Daniel was coming back, that it had all been a misunderstanding. But he never came back, and now Emily had waited for the same thing. And he did not arrive either. I knew that pain. I knew it so well it hurt in my bones, and to think she died feeling it, my God. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, because if I did not, I was going to cry, and I did not want Daniel to see me cry. I was not going to give him that pleasure. Pamela spoke. Finally, her voice was soft but so firm that everyone turned to see her. I was there. She sat up straight in her chair. She looked directly at Daniel. I was with Emily every day, from 7 in the morning until 10 at night. I read to her. I played music for her. I fed her when I could. I held her hand when she cried. Her voice cracked a little, but she composed herself. And she asked for you all the time. Tell Daniel to come. Tell him I need him. And I did not know what to tell her. She looked at Sarah. One day I called you. I begged you to come. You told me you were busy, that you had more important things to do. Sarah looked down. In the end, Emily stopped asking, and that was 1,000 times worse, because it meant she had already understood that you were not coming. Daniel tried to say something, but Pamela raised her hand. Do not dare lie again. And she fell silent. But that silence said more than any scream. Sarah exploded. She got up from the chair so fast she almost knocked it over. Enough! All of you are against us. She pointed at Pamela with a trembling finger. You got into this family only for money. You are a gold digger. You manipulated Emily to keep everything. Pamela looked at her without moving, without screaming, without even defending herself. Catherine pulled Sarah by the arm. Calm down, daughter. You are making a scene. But Sarah did not calm down. No. This is a trap. Everything is planned to humiliate us. She turned to the lawyer. You are also involved in this. Surely Pamela paid you to manipulate the will. The lawyer did not even blink. Ma'am, I suggest you sit down and remain silent, or I will have to ask you to leave the room. Sarah was breathing heavily with her hands closed into fists. Daniel pulled her down. Sit down, he told her through his teeth, and she sat down. But the rage was coming out of her pores and the fear too. Attorney Stone picked up another document. In addition to the hospital log, I have a sworn statement from Mrs. Norma Castle, Emily's personal secretary for 20 years. I knew Norma, a serious woman with gray hair and thick glasses. Emily trusted her with everything. In her statement, Mrs. Castle affirms that Mr. Daniel Alverde visited his mother a total of 3 times in the last 2 years. The 3 occasions were to request money. The lawyer read straight from the paper. First visit March 2023. He requested $50,000 to invest in a business. Second visit November 2023. He requested $30,000 to pay off debts. Third visit June 2025. Hospital. He requested $20,000 for urgent expenses. He looked up. In none of these visits did Mr. Daniel ask about the health, welfare, or needs of his mother. Daniel had his eyes fixed on the table. He was not saying anything anymore. He could no longer defend himself because the truth was there, black on white, signed and certified. The lawyer closed the document with a dry thud, took off his glasses, cleaned them with a white handkerchief, and announced what we were all waiting for. Therefore, by not complying with the first condition stipulated in the will of Mrs. Emily Christina Stone, widow of Lara, Mr. Daniel Alverde irrevocably loses 40% of his inheritance. He paused to let the words sink in. This amounts to $71 million, which will be redistributed according to the subsequent provisions of the will. 71 million. Just like that. In a second. Daniel froze. Sarah put her hands to her face. Catherine murmured something that sounded like a prayer. Pamela looked down. And I did not feel joy. I did not feel revenge. I only felt sadness. A deep sadness for everything that had been lost. For the son my son could have been, and for the mother who died waiting. Daniel stood up slowly, as if his legs weighed tons. He put his hands on the table and looked at the lawyer with red eyes. This cannot be happening. His voice was a hoarse whisper. Those 71 million are mine. They are mine. Sarah tried to calm him down, but he pushed her away. I am her son. Everything should be mine, he shouted, and that scream echoed off the glass walls. The lawyer did not flinch. You are her biological son, but you did not fulfill your role as a son, and your mother knew it. Daniel let himself fall into the chair, covered his face with his hands, and for a moment I thought he was going to cry. But he did not cry. He was just breathing fast, as if he were drowning. Sarah put her hand on his back. Catherine left the room without saying a word, with her rosary clutched between her fingers. The silence that remained was so dense you could touch it. I remained silent. I did not say a single word. I just watched. The lawyer looked at me. Mr. David, do you wish to say something? I shook my head. Not yet. My voice came out steady, steadier than I expected. Daniel looked up. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something I had never seen. Fear. He was no longer the confident man who had entered that office. He was no longer the one who mocked me. He was a scared child who had just realized that his actions had consequences. Attorney Stone picked up the papers again. There are more conditions, he said calmly. And the next one. He took a long pause. Too long. The next one is much more serious. Daniel went pale again. Sarah swallowed hard. Pamela leaned forward, and I felt that something was about to change. Something big. Something none of them were prepared to hear. Daniel stood up abruptly. The chair flew backward and hit the wall with a crash that made us all jump. No, he screamed with a voice I did not recognize. An animal voice. Desperate. This is fake. This is all a damn farce. He lunged over the table, trying to grab the documents. Attorney Stone moved them away just in time. That will is forged. My mother would never write something like that. Pamela stood up, scared. I remained seated with my heart beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. Daniel took out his phone with trembling hands. He dialed a number. Miller. Come now. Reform Building. 12th floor. Office 3. Now. He hung up and looked at us all with pure hate. You will see. My lawyer is going to destroy this lie. Sarah had come back inside, attracted by the screams. She stood at the door, pale. Attorney Stone remained calm, with his hands crossed on the table as if he had seen this scene before. Not even 10 minutes passed when the door burst open. A tall man entered. About 50 years old, impeccable black suit and leather briefcase. He had that shark air that expensive lawyers have. Dr. Ernest Miller, he introduced himself without greeting anyone. He went straight to Attorney Stone. My client informs me that there are irregularities in this probate process. His voice was hard, professional, threatening. Stone did not flinch. There are no irregularities, colleague. Miller let out a dry laugh. I am going to need to see all the documents. Now. He slammed his hand on the table. Miller reviewed them fast. Too fast. Looking for something. Anything. This will was modified very close to the date of death. That is highly suspicious. He pointed with his finger. Furthermore, my client informs me that Mrs. Emily was under strong medication that could have affected her judgment. Attorney Stone smiled. It was a small smile, but devastating. Are you questioning the legal validity of this will, Dr. Miller? Miller straightened up, adjusting his jacket. Exactly. I am formally questioning the authenticity of this document and the mental capacity of the testator at the time of signing. Daniel nodded behind him, with his arms crossed, as if he had just won a battle. Furthermore, Miller continued, I have reasons to believe there was undue influence by third parties. He looked directly at me, particularly from Mr. David Alverde, who clearly had an economic interest in manipulating a sick woman. I felt the rage rising up my chest. I was going to stand up, but Pamela put her hand on my shoulder. It is not worth it, she whispered to me. Attorney Stone stood up slowly. Very well, Dr. Miller. If you formally question the authenticity of these documents, he took out his phone, then I think the best thing is to call the corresponding authorities to authenticate everything. Do you agree? Miller hesitated for a second. Only a second, but it was enough. The authorities. Daniel approached his lawyer. What do you mean by the authorities? Attorney Stone was already dialing. I mean the judicial police and a forensic expert in legal documents. He spoke into the phone with a clear voice. Yes, this is Attorney Arthur Stone. I have a situation that requires official verification. Reform Building 322, 12th floor. He hung up and looked at us all. They will arrive in 20 minutes. Miller swallowed saliva. That will not be necessary. I was only... Stone interrupted him. No, doctor. You accused forgery. That is a serious criminal offense. So we are going to verify with official experts every signature, every seal, every date of this will. He turned to Daniel. And since we are going to have the police here, we might as well verify some other things too. The tone of his voice changed. It became darker. Things your mother left documented, just in case. Sarah collapsed into a chair. Daniel went white. The longest 20 minutes of my life. Nobody spoke. Daniel walked from one side to the other like a caged animal. Miller was checking his phone, nervous. Sarah was biting her nails. Pamela looked at me with concern. And I just thought, what else did Emily leave? What else did she know? When they knocked on the door, we all jumped. 2 men with investigator badges entered. One was older with a gray mustache and a serious expression. The other was younger with a laptop under his arm. Attorney Stone, said the older one, shaking his hand. Inspector Vargas. This is Agent Morales. Behind them entered a woman of about 40 with a briefcase and glasses. Forensic expert Dr. Lucy Herrera. Inspector Vargas looked at everyone. Who requested the verification? Stone raised his hand. I did. And this gentleman, he pointed to Miller. He accused forgery of testamentary documents. The inspector's eyes narrowed. That is a very serious accusation. Dr. Herrera opened her briefcase on the table. She took out magnifying glasses, special lamps, some kind of portable scanner. She started reviewing the documents in absolute silence. Nobody dared to breathe loud. After what seemed like an eternity, she looked up. The signatures are authentic. The ink corresponds to the declared date. The notary seals are in order. She looked at Miller. There is no evidence of forgery. Daniel grabbed his head with his hands. No, it cannot be. Inspector Vargas took notes. Is there anything else that needs verification? Attorney Stone nodded. Yes. Mrs. Emily left additional material in a security chest. He turned toward the door. Excuse me. He left the office. He returned 5 minutes later with 2 security employees from the building. Between the 3 of them, they were carrying a metal chest. Heavy, the size of a large suitcase. They put it on the table with a thud that made the water glasses shake. The chest was dark gray with a digital lock on the front. It had dents as if it were very old. Attorney Stone took a paper from his folder. Mrs. Emily left specific instructions. He read out loud. This chest must only be opened if my son Daniel questions the validity of the will. Daniel took a step back. Furthermore, she left the access code. Stone approached the chest. His fingers hovered over the numeric keypad. The code is... He started to dial. 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 9, 5, 3. My date of birth. December 31st, 1953. Daniel saw it. He understood it. His legs buckled and he had to lean against the wall. No, the chest emitted a click. Stone lifted the lid slowly, and what was inside made us all lose our breath. Flash drives. At least 6, each one labeled with dates, sealed letters, some yellowish, and at the bottom, wrapped in a black cloth, a gun. What the hell is that? Sarah screamed, pointing at the weapon. Inspector Vargas put on latex gloves and took it out carefully. A .38 caliber pistol. Safety off. He smelled it. It has not been fired recently. He put it on the table. We all looked at it as if it were a live snake. Why did my mother have a gun? Daniel asked with a trembling voice. His face had lost all color. He looked like he was going to faint. Attorney Stone took another letter from the chest. He opened it. He read in silence first. Then he looked up and looked Daniel straight in the eyes. Because she was afraid. He let the words float in the air. She was afraid of you, Mr. Daniel. The silence that followed was brutal. Sarah let out a whimper. Pamela covered her mouth. Dr. Miller closed his briefcase. I think my client no longer requires my services, and he left the office without looking back. Coward. Inspector Vargas took one of the flash drives. With your permission, attorney. Stone nodded. Agent Morales opened his laptop and connected the device. The screen lit up. There was a single file. A video. Shall we play it? Asked Morales. We all moved closer. Daniel, too, like he was hypnotized. The agent clicked. The screen showed a room. It was Emily's bedroom. I recognized it by the blue curtains she liked so much. And there she was, sitting on her bed, thin, with a scarf on her head because she had already lost her hair from the chemotherapy, but with clear, lucid, firm eyes. She looked straight at the camera and spoke. "If you are watching this," her voice came out clear from the laptop speaker, "it is because Daniel is fighting the inheritance." She paused. "And if he is fighting, it is because he did not like what he discovered." Another pause. "I need you to know the truth." She leaned forward. "My son threatened me, and I have proof." The video continued. Emily coughed, put her hand to her chest, but kept talking. "3 weeks ago, Daniel came to my house. He needed money, as always." Her voice sounded tired but firm. "I told him I could not keep giving him more, that he had spent millions on his gambling debts, on his bad businesses, on maintaining that life he cannot sustain." She paused to breathe. "And then he changed. I saw something in his eyes I had never seen. Pure rage. The camera captured every detail of her emaciated face. He grabbed my arm, hard. He gave me bruises. She lifted the sleeve of her robe and showed the purple marks. Pamela stifled a scream. And he told me, looking me straight in the eyes, 'If you do not give me the money, you are going to regret it. You do not know what I am capable of.'" Emily lowered her sleeve. "That was when I knew my son was lost, and that I was in danger." "Lies!" Daniel exploded, hitting the table with both hands. The sound echoed through the whole office. "She was demented. She was full of morphine. She did not know what she was saying." He lunged toward the laptop, but Inspector Vargas stopped him with one arm. "Sir, calm down." Daniel thrashed around with his eyes bloodshot. "My mother loved me. She would never say those things. Someone forced her to record that." Sarah tried to approach, but he pushed her away with a slap. "This is all a trap. A fucking trap." Agent Morales paused the video. Dr. Herrera, the forensic expert, lifted a document from the chest. "There is a psychiatric evaluation attached," she said with a professional voice. "Signed by Dr. Ramiro Castellanos, certified psychiatrist. Date: same day as the video recording." She read out loud. "The patient Emily Stone is in full use of her mental faculties, lucid, oriented in time and space without signs of dementia or cognitive alteration." She looked up. "Your mother was perfectly conscious when she recorded this." Inspector Vargas took another flash drive from the chest. "There are more videos. Shall we review them?" Attorney Stone nodded. "All of them." Daniel let himself fall into a chair with his head between his hands. Morales connected the second device. This time the image was different, black and white, high angle like a security camera. It was the living room of Emily's house. I recognized the furniture. The date in the corner read, May 23rd, 2025, 15:47 hours. Emily was sitting on the sofa, reading. The door opened. Daniel entered. He did not knock. He did not say hello. He just entered. "Mom, I need to talk to you." His voice sounded tense even through the low-quality audio. Emily looked up. "Daniel, son, what a surprise." She did not sound surprised. She sounded tired. He sat in front of her. "I need $50,000. It is urgent." Emily sighed. "We already talked about this." "I cannot continue." Daniel interrupted her in the video. "I do not care what you can or cannot do." His voice rose in volume. He stood up. "I am your son. You owe me." Emily shrank back on the sofa. "Daniel, please calm down." But he did not calm down. He approached her, leaning in until their faces were inches apart. And then he screamed so loud that the recording audio distorted. "If you do not give me the money, you are going to regret it. I swear you are going to regret it." Emily started to cry. Quiet, scared sobs. Daniel turned his back on her and left, slamming the door. The camera kept recording. Emily stayed there alone, crying, hugging herself. The image froze. In the office, nobody breathed. I felt as if someone had put their hand in my chest and was squeezing my heart. Pamela was crying in silence. Inspector Vargas was writing fast in his notebook. And Daniel? Daniel was looking at the screen with his eyes wide open as if he were seeing a ghost. The office door burst open. It was Sarah. She had come back. Catherine had called her, surely. She entered running with her hair messy, her makeup smeared. "What is happening?" "They told me there was police." She stopped when she saw the laptop. The frozen image of Emily crying, the open chest, the gun on the table. No. Her voice came out like a whisper. Inspector Vargas looked at her. You are? Sarah sat down slowly without taking her eyes off the screen. Agent Morales took out another flash drive. This one was labeled Audio. Phone call. The 20th of March, 2024. My birthday. The day of the heart attack. Morales connected it. This file was recovered from Mrs. Emily's phone. She had an automatic call recording application. He pressed play. Sarah's voice was heard. Clear. Unmistakable. Hello? Carla. A woman's voice answered. Yes, my love, what happened? Sarah sighed. Nothing. The father-in-law calling again. Laughter. Both of them laughing. Is the old man still bothering? Asked this Carla. Yes, what a nuisance. Always with the same thing. That he feels bad, that he needs help, that I don't know what. More laughter. I closed my eyes. I knew what was coming. I felt it. That old man is not going to last long, said Sarah, with a carefree voice like someone talking about the weather. Between the medicines he takes and how old he is, any day he dies. Carla laughed. And you guys inherit right. Sarah lowered her voice, but the microphone caught everything. Not directly from him, but Daniel is the only child. When the mother-in-law dies, everything is ours. And the sooner the old man goes, the fewer problems. A pause. Let's just let him die alone. Anyway, nobody is going to miss him. The audio ended. Sarah had turned white as a sheet. She stood up, wobbling. That is not me. Her voice was trembling. That is edited, manipulated. Inspector Vargas shook his head. The file has digital certification. It has not been altered. Sarah backed toward the door. I have to go. I have things to do. Agent Morales stepped in her way. Ma'am, you cannot leave. Sarah tried to push him, but he did not move. Get out of my way! She screamed at him. The inspector stood up. Mrs. Sarah Alverde, I need you to sit down. There is an open investigation now, and you are a person of interest. Sarah looked at Daniel, seeking help. Daniel, say something! Defend me! But Daniel was not looking at her. He had his eyes locked on the floor with his jaw clenched. Sarah let herself fall into the chair. This cannot be happening, she murmured. This cannot be happening. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking, but I needed to stand up. I needed to see Daniel in the eyes. I walked toward him. Every step weighed on me as if I were carrying stones in my shoes. I stopped in front of his chair. Look at me. My voice came out hoarse. Daniel did not look up. Look at me, I repeated louder. Finally, he raised his eyes. They were red, damp. That day, the day of the heart attack. My voice was trembling. I called you 14 times. 14. I felt the tears starting to burn my eyes. I begged you. I begged your wife. And she laughed. And you knew. Daniel opened his mouth. Dad, I did not let him finish. How long did you wait? How long did you wait to see if I died? He did not answer because there was no possible answer. Suddenly something inside him broke. He jumped up and threw himself at me. This is all your fault, he screamed, pushing me. I lost my balance. The 2 security guards from the building lunged at him, holding him by the arms. Let me go! Let me go! Inspector Vargas and Agent Morales also intervened. Between the 4 of them, they managed to contain Daniel, who was still twisting, screaming. If you hadn't existed, my mom would have never divorced Herbert. Everything would be mine. Everything. He spat the words with hate. Pamela helped me get up. Henry had entered at some point without me noticing and was by my side. Are you okay, buddy? I nodded, although I was not okay. Nothing was okay. Attorney Stone remained standing next to the chest, observing everything with a grave expression. When Daniel finally calmed down, breathing heavily but still, Stone spoke. His voice cut through the chaos like a knife. There is more. We all turned to see him. He took another envelope from the chest. This one was red. Much more. And it has to do. He took a long pause, measuring his words. With the death of Mrs. Emily. Inspector Vargas looked at Attorney Stone with narrowed eyes. What do you mean with the death of Mrs. Emily? Stone did not answer yet. Instead, he looked toward the door. There is someone else who needs to be here. As if it had been a signal, there was a knock on the door. Agent Morales opened it. And there was Henry, my neighbor, my friend, my savior. But he did not come alone. Another policeman accompanied him. A uniformed officer. "Inspector," said the officer. "Mr. Henry Selina. We brought him as a witness, as requested by the attorney." Henry entered slowly with his heavy walk of an old bricklayer. He was carrying a shoebox under his arm. A common box, the kind where you keep old photos. He looked at me. "Forgive me, buddy. I did not want you to find out like this. But I had to tell the truth. I did not understand what he was talking about. Not yet." The inspector pointed to a chair. "Sit down, Mr. Selina." Henry obeyed, putting the box on the table carefully as if it contained something sacred, or something dangerous. "I live in the apartment next to Mr. David." Henry started with a deep voice. 202. "We have been neighbors for 3 years." He cleared his throat. "That building is old. The walls are thin. You hear everything. Fights, televisions, everything." He opened the box. Inside was an old digital recorder, the kind journalists used years ago, and several cassettes. About 5 years ago, there were robberies in the building. I was robbed twice, so I put this in the hallway. He took out the recorder. Voice activation. It recorded when it detected loud sounds for security. He looked at Daniel. "I never thought I was going to record something like this." The inspector leaned forward. "What did you record, Mr. Selina?" Henry took out one of the cassettes. It had a date written in marker. March 13th, 2024. 1 week before my heart attack. This. He gave the cassette to Agent Morales. "You need to hear it." Morales connected the old recorder to his laptop using an adapter. The audio was low quality with static, but it was understandable. Footsteps were heard, then voices. "Are you sure about this?" It was Sarah's voice. "Yes," answered Daniel. "I cannot take it anymore. We need that money now." Sarah sighed. "But your mom is not going to give you more. She already made it clear." Silence. Footsteps. Then Daniel spoke again, and what he said made my blood freeze. "If the old man dies of a heart attack, nobody is going to suspect anything. He is already sick. He is already old. It would be natural." Sarah laughed a nervous laugh. "Are you serious?" Daniel did not answer directly. "With him out of the way, my mom is going to feel guilty. She is going to want to compensate me. She is going to give me what I need." Another pause. "And if he survives?" asked Sarah. Daniel's answer was cold as ice. "Then we make sure he does not get help." I stood up so fast the chair fell backward. The sound of metal against the floor resonated in the whole office. "You—" My voice came out like a growl. "You planned it." I walked toward Daniel. The guard still had him held, but I saw nothing else but his face. That face that had been that of my baby, my boy, my son. "You planned to kill me." It was not a question. It was a realization. Daniel was shaking his head, frantic. No, not me. We were talking nonsense. We were drunk. But Inspector Vargas was already taking notes. "Mr. Alverde, do you confirm that is your voice on the recording?" Daniel did not answer. He just cried. "And 7 days after this conversation," continued the inspector, looking at the documents he had in his folder, "Mr. David Alverde suffered an acute myocardial infarction." He looked at me. "Is that correct?" I nodded. I could not speak. My throat had closed up, and his son was contacted 14 times. No answer. I nodded again. The inspector turned to Daniel. "Mr. Daniel Alverde, I need you to answer carefully. Did you receive your father's calls on March 20th? Daniel was shaking. I was busy." "Did you receive them?" The inspector's voice was hard as stone. "Yes," Daniel whispered. "But I thought what?" Daniel closed his eyes. "I thought he was exaggerating, that he wanted attention." The inspector wrote something down. "And the call to your wife? Did you know about that one?" Daniel opened his eyes. He looked at Sarah. She was shaking her head, crying. "I did not know," Daniel lied. But Agent Morales took out another document. "We have the call log from Mrs. Sarah's phone. 3 minutes after Mr. David's call, there is an outgoing call of 2 minutes. To Mr. Daniel's number." Sarah stopped denying. She lowered her head. "And Daniel?" Daniel could not lie anymore. The guards let him go. There was no point in holding him. He was not going to attack anyone anymore. He had no strength left. He let himself fall into the chair, defeated. Pamela stood up abruptly. Her face was red, her hands closed in fists. Emily knew. Her voice came out like a scream. "She told me." We all turned to look at her. A month before she died, she called me to her room. She was crying. She told me, "Pamela, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of my own son." Her voice cracked, but she kept talking. I asked her why, and she told me that Daniel had asked her about her will. Not about what was in it, about when she was going to die. The silence was absolute. He asked her, "How much time do you have left, Mom? Months? Weeks?" Pamela looked at Daniel with pure contempt, and when she told him the doctors gave her 6 months, he smiled. She told me my son smiled when he knew I was dying. Daniel was shaking his head. "No, I did not. I just—" But Pamela had not finished, and then he asked her if the will was already ready, if she had already signed everything, as if he was in a hurry, as if he could not wait for her to die. The door opened again. It was Norma, Emily's secretary. She was wearing a black suit and thick glasses. The officer who was outside accompanied her inside. "Miss Norma Castle," he announced. Inspector Vargas stood up. "Come in, Miss Castle. We were waiting for you." Norma entered with confident steps. She looked at me and gave me a small nod, almost imperceptible. Then she looked at Daniel, and in that look there was something scary. "Knowledge. Proof. Is it true?" "I was Mrs. Emily's secretary for 20 years, she said with a clear voice. "I managed her schedule, her calls, her medical appointments." She took a notebook from her bag. "On May 15th of this year, Mr. Daniel arrived at the house. Without warning, the madam was on a teleconsultation with her oncologist, Dr. Ruiz. She opened the notebook. I was in the office next to the bedroom. The door was ajar. I heard everything. Norma read from her notebook, although I think she did not need to read it. She probably had it memorized. Daniel knocked on the bedroom door. He entered without waiting for an answer. The madam signaled him that she was on a call, but he did not care. He sat on the bed and waited. She turned a page. When the madam hung up, Daniel asked her, "What did the doctor say?" She answered that the cancer was advancing, that the treatment was not working. Norma looked up, and then Daniel asked something that froze my blood. She looked straight at Daniel. He asked, "And if you stop the treatment, do you die faster?" Pamela stifled a scream. I felt as if I had been punched. Norma continued. The madam froze. She told him, "Daniel, what kind of question is that?" And he answered, "No, Mom, it is just that I thought that maybe the treatment makes you suffer more, that maybe it would be better to let you go in peace." Norma closed the notebook, but his tone was not of concern. It was of hope, as if he wanted her to say yes. Inspector Vargas stood up. "Mr. Daniel Alverde," his voice was formal, official, "I need you to come with me to the station to give a formal statement." Daniel looked up with his eyes wide open. "Statement about what?" The inspector looked at him without emotion. Suspicion of attempted murder against his father, possible participation in the acceleration of his mother's death, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Sarah stood up screaming, "You cannot arrest him. He did not do anything. All this is a lie." Agent Morales approached her. "Ma'am, do you also need to come give a statement?" Sarah tried to run, but Agent Morales grabbed her by the arm. "Let me go. You have no right." The 2 guards helped Daniel stand up. He did not resist. He just looked at me, and in that look, there were so many things. Fear, regret, hate, love, all mixed together. "Dad," he said. Just that. "Dad." I did not answer. I could not. And if you are listening to this story now from wherever you are, I want you to know that your support means everything to me. Leave me a comment telling me where you are listening from. Sometimes knowing that I am not alone in this gives me the strength to continue. Wait. The voice of Attorney Stone stopped everyone. The guards let go of Daniel. Inspector Vargas turned around. "What is it, Attorney?" Stone took out the red envelope he had mentioned before. "Before you take Mr. Daniel away, there is something that must be read. These are direct instructions from Mrs. Emily." He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick ivory paper. Emily's handwriting filled both sides of the sheet. Stone looked at me. "Mr. David, this letter is for you, but the madam asked that it be read out loud in front of everyone present before any arrest." I felt my legs getting weak. Henry helped me sit down. The lawyer started reading. "David, my love, if you are hearing this, it means they discovered the truth about Daniel." He paused. "And now you have to make the hardest decision of your life." The lawyer continued reading with a slow voice, giving weight to every word. "I know what my son did, or tried to do. And I know that you, with that noble heart you always had, are going to want to forgive him, because that is how you are. I closed my eyes. Emily knew me. Even after so many years, she knew me better than anyone. But I need to tell you something before you decide. Stone turned the page. Daniel did not act alone, and it is not the first time. The silence in the office became heavy, dense. Herbert, my second husband, died 2 years ago. They told me it was cardiac arrest. Natural, they said. He was 72 years old. He was diabetic. He smoked. The lawyer's voice trembled slightly. But I found something. Weeks before dying, Herbert had changed his will. Pamela let out a whimper. What? Daniel raised his head suddenly. No, no. The lawyer kept reading implacably. Herbert left instructions that if something happened to him, a part of his fortune, $45 million, would go to you, David. I could not believe what I was hearing. What? Why? My voice came out like a croak. The lawyer raised a hand, asking me to wait. Herbert knew you, David. I talked to him so much about you that he felt he knew you. I told him how you worked 3 jobs so Daniel could study, how you sold everything you had to pay for his college, how you were left with nothing when we divorced because I kept everything. The letter continued. Herbert was a good man, better than me without a doubt, and he told me that man deserves something for everything he gave. So he modified his will 3 weeks before dying. He did it in secret. I did not know until later. Stone paused to drink water. We all waited. But here is the strange thing, David. 2 days after signing that new will, Herbert started feeling bad. Dizziness, nausea, confusion. The doctors thought it was his diabetes, but he got worse fast. Too fast. A week later he was dead. The lawyer's voice was barely a whisper now. And when I checked his things, I found this. Stone took another document from the red envelope. A letter that Herbert left me. Unopened. It said only open this if you suspect something. Pamela was sobbing. I could not move. Herbert's letter said, Emily, if you are reading this, it is because I died sooner than expected. I want you to know something. Your son Daniel came to see me 2 weeks ago. He asked me about my will. He thought it was strange that I was going to leave money to a stranger. I told him that David was not a stranger to me, that he was more worthy than most people I know. The lawyer looked up. And here comes the important part. He read again. Daniel got angry. He told me that money should be his, that he was your son, not David. Then he asked me how much time I had left to live, and if my diabetes could be accelerated. Inspector Vargas stood up abruptly. What did he say? The lawyer read the last lines of Herbert's letter. Emily, I do not want to alarm you, but your son scares me. If something happens to me, please investigate. Ask what Daniel was doing the weeks before my death. Check his movements. And above all, protect David, because if Daniel was capable of thinking about hurting me, I do not know what else he will be capable of. The silence that followed was absolute. Daniel was white as a sheet. Sarah was crying with her hands on her face. Inspector Vargas took out his phone. I'm going to need Mr. Herbert's medical records now. He looked at Daniel. And a search warrant for his house and his bank accounts. He turned to Agent Morales. This is no longer just an attempt. This is a homicide investigation. Daniel fell to his knees. No, not me. I never. But nobody believed him. Not even he believed himself anymore. Attorney Stone put the letters away and took out another document. This one was official with seals and signatures. This is the will of Mr. Herbert Lara. Certified, authenticated, irrevocable. He read the relevant part. He left $45 million in a trust for Mr. David Alverde. He looked at me. Added to the $178 million from Mrs. Emily. He did the math mentally. That is $223 million for you. $223 million. I could not process it. Me, who had lived in a 2-room apartment in the old neighborhood. Me, who had worked as a waiter at 70 years old. Me, who had to borrow a suit from my brother-in-law to come to this meeting. Henry squeezed my shoulder. Buddy. He could not say more. Pamela was crying and smiling at the same time. Mr. David, Mrs. Emily loved you. She always loved you. And Daniel. Daniel was looking at me from the floor with an expression of absolute horror because he had just understood. He had not only lost everything, I had won everything. Daniel crawled toward me. Literally crawled on his knees with his hands extended. Dad! Dad, please! His voice was a wail. Help me, please help me. He reached my feet. He grabbed my pants. Do not let them take me, please. I did not want to. I only... He could not even finish the sentences. He was just crying. Snot tears, everything mixed. Dad, you are good. You have always been good. Forgive me, and help me. Sarah was screaming from where she was. David, please, he is your son. Your only son. Inspector Vargas looked at me. His expression was neutral, but there was something in his eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or respect. Mr. David, he said with a formal voice, I need you to answer a question. I sat up straight in the chair. Do you press formal charges against your son Daniel Alverde for attempted murder? The question floated in the air like a death sentence. Everyone was looking at me. The inspector, Agent Morales, Dr. Herrera, the guards, Pamela, Henry, Norma, Attorney Stone, Sarah, and Daniel, my son, at my feet, holding onto my legs like when he was 5 years old and had nightmares. Dad, do not let go. Do not leave me. That is what he used to tell me. And I never let go. Not when Emily left me. Not when he stopped talking to me. Not when he humiliated me in that restaurant. Not when he left me to die alone on my kitchen floor. I never let go because he was my son. I looked at the inspector. I opened my mouth. The words weighed like stones. Daniel squeezed my legs tighter. Please, he whispered. Please. And I remembered everything. His first step. His first word. Dad. The day I held him in the hospital newborn and promised him I would always protect him, that I would never leave him alone, that I would never abandon him, even when he abandoned me. I took a deep breath, and I answered, No. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Daniel raised his head with eyes full of hope. The inspector frowned. You do not press charges. I shook my head. No, not yet. Daniel let out a sob of relief, but I had not finished. I leaned forward, looking my son straight in the eyes. Not yet, because first I need answers. My voice was trembling, but not from fear, from rage contained for years. I need you to tell me why. Here, now, in front of everyone. Daniel blinked, confused. Why what? I stood up. He had to let go of my legs. Why did you hate me so much? Why did you want to see me dead? Why did your own mother have to keep a gun in her house because she was afraid of you? My voice rose in volume. Why, Daniel? What did I do to you? What the hell did I do to you to deserve this? The silence that followed was deafening. And Daniel was finally going to tell the truth. Daniel stood up slowly. His knees cracked. His face was red, swollen from crying so much. He wiped his nose with his jacket sleeve. And then he exploded. What did you do to me? His voice came out like a roar. Oh, you really want to know what you did to me? He walked toward me with closed fists. The guards tensed up, but the inspector stopped them with a gesture. Let him talk. Daniel stopped inches from my face. You abandoned me. He spat the words. I was 12 years old. 12. And one day you came home and said you were leaving. That you did not love us anymore. That you had met someone else. I blinked. What? That was not true. None of that was true. You act like you do not know. Daniel laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. My mom told me. She sat me on my bed and told me, Your dad is leaving, son. He met another woman. He is going to have another family. We are not important to him anymore. I felt as if someone had emptied a bucket of ice water on me. That is a lie. My voice barely came out. I never said that. Daniel continued as if he had not heard me. I cried all night. I waited for you. I thought you were going to come back, that you were going to say it was a lie. His voice cracked. But you did not come back. And my mom told me it was because you already had another family, that you had forgotten about us. He wiped his tears with rage. I waited for you to call. On my birthday. On Christmas. Nothing. He grabbed my shirt. Do you know what it is to grow up thinking your dad traded you for another family? That you were not worth enough for him to look for you? I tried to speak, but he pushed me. Years, Dad. Years waiting. And you never called. You never wrote. You never came. The inspector intervened. Mr. Daniel, calm down. But Daniel could not calm down. He was letting everything out. All the poison he had kept for decades. That is not true. That is not true. Norma, Emily's secretary, spoke from her place. Her voice was firm, clear. That is not true, Mr. Daniel. And Mrs. Emily knew it. We all turned to see her. She stood up, opening her bag. I worked for your mother for 20 years, and I know exactly what happened. She took out a small key. Mrs. Emily gave me this before dying. She told me if one day Daniel and David meet, give them this. She walked toward the chest that was still open on the table. She used the key to open a secret compartment at the bottom. Inside there were bundles and bundles of letters. Hundreds. Tied with rubber bands organized by year. These are the letters Mr. David wrote to you, Daniel. She put them on the table. The sound of the bundles falling was like stones. One every week for 18 years. Daniel stood paralyzed. That cannot be. Norma took one at random. She opened it. Dear Daniel, today you turn 13. I hope you are happy. I miss you a lot. Dad. Norma took another letter. Son, today was your high school graduation. Your mom did not let me go, but I was outside the school. I saw you come out. You are so big. I love you, Dad. Another one. Daniel, I heard you got into college. I am so proud. I wish you could read this. I wish you knew I never forgot you. Dad. Norma kept taking out letters, reading fragments. Each one was a dagger in the heart. Daniel fell to his knees again, but this time not from fear, from shock. No, she told me. She told me that you, Norma interrupted him. Your mother intercepted all the letters. She kept them. She never gave them to you. She opened another bundle. And these are the legal requests Mr. David filed to see you. Official documents, dates, signatures. He tried to recover joint custody 6 times. 6 times between your 12 and 18 years. She looked at Daniel harshly. Your mother hired the best lawyers. Mr. David lost everything in those legal battles. That is why he became poor. That is why he had nothing. Because he spent it all trying to reach you. The letters were scattered on the table. Hundreds of them. I looked at them as if they were ghosts. I wrote every week, I said with a broken voice. Every damn week for years. And when you turned 18, I kept writing. Even though I no longer had a legal obligation, I kept writing because you were my son. I looked at Daniel. Did you really believe I had abandoned you? He could not speak. He just took the letters with trembling hands, opening them, reading fragments. His face changed with every word. Horror, sadness, confusion. She told me. His voice was barely a whisper. She told me you did not want to know anything about me, that you had formed another family, that you had other children. I shook my head. I never remarried. I never had other children. Only you. Always only you. Daniel dropped the letters. He covered his face with his hands. And he cried. But this time it was not a cry of desperation. It was a cry of something deeper, of loss, of stolen years, of a whole life built on lies. Henry, who had been quiet all this time, spoke. I can confirm some of that. We all looked at him. He approached the table with his slow walk. Mr. David came to live in the building 3 years ago, and from the first day he only talked about one thing, his son. He looked at Daniel. He told me everything. The divorce, the legal battle, how he spent all his savings on lawyers, how he lost his house, his car, everything. He crossed his arms. He told me his ex-wife had connections, that she paid judges, that she falsified documents saying Mr. David was dangerous. He took out his old phone. I have something here. Mr. David showed it to me one day. He was very drunk and sad. He searched in the gallery. Here, a legal document, a restraining order against me, signed by a judge. Date, 2007. This order, said Mr. David, could not get closer than 200 meters from you, Daniel, due to violent and threatening behavior. Henry looked at me. Were you ever violent with your son? I shook my head. Never, not once. Norma intervened again. That order was bought. Mrs. Emily confessed it to me before dying. She took more papers out of the chest. She paid $50,000 to a corrupt judge. She falsified statements. She paid false witnesses. She showed the documents. All to ensure that Mr. David could never get close to you. She looked at Daniel with something like pity. Your mother loved you, but she loved you in a sick, possessive way. She did not want to share you with anyone, not even with your own father. Daniel took the documents. He read them in silence. I saw how his face was breaking down with every line. She She did all this and made me believe. He could not finish the sentence. Attorney Stone spoke. Your mother regretted it. That is why she changed the will. That is why she left all this stored. That is why she wanted you to know the truth. Daniel let the papers fall. So, everything I believed, everything was a lie. He looked up at me. You did love me. It was not a question. It was a painful realization. I always loved you. My voice came out cracked, even when you hated me. Even when you humiliated me. Even when you left me to die on my kitchen floor. Tears were running down my face, and I did not care. Because you are my son, and one does not stop loving a son. Even if that son hates you, even if that son destroys you, even if that son... I could not continue. I sat down. My legs would not hold me anymore. Daniel approached slowly. He knelt in front of me, but this time not to beg, to be at my level. I hated you so much, he whispered. So much. For so many years. His voice broke. And it turns out that the wrong man was the one I hated. He closed his eyes. My mom, she lied to me. She destroyed you, and she made me destroy you too. He opened his eyes. They were red, but there was something different in them. Clarity. Dad, I am sorry. I am so sorry. And for the first time in that horrible meeting I saw my son, the boy he had been, not the monster he had become. Attorney Stone took a final envelope from the chest. This one was purple. There is something else, he said with a soft voice. Something Mrs. Emily confessed on video, about why she did all this. He connected another flash drive. The screen showed Emily again. But this recording was different. She was in a wheelchair with oxygen. The last days. David Daniel. She started with a weak voice. If you are watching this together, it means the truth finally came out. She coughed. I need to confess something. Something that has haunted me for 25 years. She took a long pause. I destroyed David because I was afraid. Another silence. Afraid that if Daniel spent time with you, he would realize I was the bad one. That I was the one who destroyed our family. That I chose money over love. Tears were running down her cheeks. So I did the worst thing a mother can do. I turned my son into a weapon against his father. And now I see the result. She looked straight at the camera. Daniel, forgive me. David, forgive me. I ruined you both, and the only thing I can do now is try to fix it. Attorney Stone paused the video a moment. There is one last recording. Mrs. Emily made it a week before passing away. She was very weak, but she insisted. He connected another flash drive. This time Emily was in the hospital bed with tubes in her arms, oxygen in her nose. She looked so fragile she almost did not look like herself, but her eyes. Her eyes were clear, determined. Daniel, she started with a raspy voice. If you are watching this, I am sorry. She coughed. A nurse appeared in the frame, gave her water, and left. I am sorry for everything. For every lie. For every stolen year. For turning you into what you are. She paused to breathe. I lied to you about your father. Since you were 12 years old, I told you he abandoned us, that he traded us for another family, and none of that was true. Tears ran down her cheeks. David never abandoned us. I threw him out. For money. Because Herbert was rich, and your father was not. Her voice broke. And I ruined your life for that. I ruined all 3 lives. Emily continued in the video. Every word cost her more effort. When your father tried to see you, when he looked for you, when he fought for you in the courts, I prevented it. I paid judges. I falsified documents. I took all his money in those legal battles until I left him on the street. She wiped her tears with a trembling hand. And do you know why? Because I was afraid. Afraid that if you spent time with him, you would realize who was really the villain of the story. She took a long pause, breathing with difficulty. Your father is a good man, Daniel, the best I ever knew, and I destroyed him. I destroyed both of you. You with lies, him with poverty and loneliness. She looked straight at the camera with intensity. But there is something else, something I discovered very recently, something that made me realize I was not the only one who destroyed you. Her expression changed, from sadness to something darker, fear. It was not just me, it was her, Sarah. Emily pronounced the name as if it were poison. Your wife is not who she says she is. Daniel, who was sitting on the floor, raised his head suddenly. Sarah, who was still held by Agent Morales, turned white. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago when I started to suspect and what he found. Emily coughed violently. The image shook. When she recovered, she continued. Sarah Mendoza is not a real name. It is Sarah Varela, and she has a history that terrified me. The video showed scanned documents superimposed while Emily spoke. She met you in the gambling addicts group, but she was not there to recover. She was hunting. The documents showed photos of Sarah with different men. She investigated your life before approaching you. She knew who your mother was, how much money she had. She calculated everything. Daniel watched the screen with absolute horror. She does not love you, son. She never loved you. She only loved what you could give her. Inspector Vargas took out his tablet. This matches an investigation we have open. He searched for something and showed the screen. It was a police file with Sarah's photo. Sarah Varela, 32 years old, born in Monterrey. He read out loud. Married 4 times. Not 3, 4. He looked at Sarah harshly. First husband, Robert Estrada, 65 years old. Died of an apparent heart attack 6 months after getting married. He left her a house. Next page. Second husband, William Sains, 70 years old. Died from a fall down the stairs. He left her $200,000. Another page. Third husband, George Maldonado, 58 years old. Poisoning by medication. Investigation closed for lack of evidence, but the victim's brother keeps insisting on reopening it. The inspector looked up. And now she is married to you, Mr. Daniel, whose stepfather died mysteriously 2 years after modifying his will. The silence was absolute. Sarah was shaking her head, but nobody believed her anymore. That is a lie, Sarah screamed, twisting in Agent Morales' grip. Everything is a lie. I loved Robert and William and George. The inspector ignored her. He kept reading from the file. Currently there is an open investigation in Monterrey. George Maldonado's brother presented new evidence. Blood tests that show abnormal levels of digitalis in the system. He looked at Sarah. Digitalis, the same medication Mr. Herbert took for his heart. In excessive doses, it causes cardiac arrest. Sarah tried to run toward the door, but Morales held her tight. Let me go. You do not have any proof. Pamela stood up. I have proof. We all turned toward her. She took out her phone. Mrs. Emily asked me to document everything strange I saw, and I saw something. She searched in her gallery. 2 weeks before Mr. Herbert died, I saw Sarah in the house, in the medicine cabinet, taking photos of Mr. Herbert's medications. She showed the photos, dates and times certified. Sarah in the bathroom with pill bottles in her hands. Sarah launched herself against Pamela. You always hated me. You wanted the money too. You manipulated the old lady to keep everything. She tried to hit her, but Agent Morales pulled her back. Pamela did not back down. She stood there firm, looking at Sarah with a devastating calm. I loved Mrs. Emily. Her voice was soft but sharp as glass. I took care of her when no one else did. I fed her when she could no longer hold the spoon. I cleaned her when she wet herself because of the medications. I stayed awake all night holding her hand when she was afraid of dying. Tears were running down her face, but her voice did not tremble. I loved her like a mother. Like you will never be able to love anyone because you do not know how to love. You only know how to use. Sarah spat at her, but Pamela did not even move. Enjoy prison, said Pamela. It is the only thing you have left. Henry cleared his throat. I also have something to say. We all looked at him. He stood up, walked toward the inspector. The day of Mr. David's heart attack after the ambulance arrived, I stayed in the hallway watching, scared. He took out his old phone again. And I saw something strange. Around 5 in the afternoon, when Mr. David was already at the hospital, someone arrived at the building. He showed a blurry photo taken from his door's peephole. It was her. The photo showed Sarah in the hallway in front of David's apartment door. She knocked on the door, waited, as if she was checking something. He moved to the next photo. Then she put her ear to the door, listening if there was anyone inside. Henry looked at Sarah with disgust. When she did not hear anything, she smiled. I saw it. She smiled as if she had just won something. Last photo. But then she heard the ambulance siren returning for something they had forgotten, and she ran. She left the building running. The inspector took the phone. I am going to need these photos as evidence, Sarah Varela, said Inspector Vargas with an official voice. You are detained as a suspect of attempted homicide against Mr. David Alverde and as a person of interest in the deaths of Robert Estrada, William Sayans, George Maldonado, and Herbert Lara. Agent Morales took out the handcuffs. Sarah fought. She screamed. She kicked. No, Daniel! Daniel, defend me! Tell them they are crazy. But Daniel did not move. He just looked at her as if he was seeing her for the first time. Did you know? His voice came out broken. Did you know they had died like that? Sarah stopped fighting. She looked at him with pure hate. Of course I knew. I planned everything. She laughed, a hysterical, chilling laugh. And you know what? I was going to do the same to you. As soon as your mom died and you inherited everything. 6 months maximum and then a tragic accident. She spat the words. But your bitch mother ruined everything for me. This is your fault, Daniel. All this is your fault for being so stupid. Agent Morales dragged her out. Her screams could be heard down the hallway. You are going to pay for this. All of you. The door closed. The silence that remained was so heavy it hurt. Daniel was sitting on the floor back against the wall, staring into the void. Pamela was crying in silence. Norma had sat down with her head between her hands. Henry put his hand on my shoulder. Buddy. He could not say more. I could not process anything. My son had been married to a killer. A woman who had used him, who had planned to kill him, who almost killed me. The inspector closed his notebook. Mr. Daniel, I am going to need you to come to clarify. But... He looked at Attorney Stone. First, finish here. Finish what you started. Daniel looked up at me. His eyes were empty, broken. Dad, I did not know anything about this. His voice was barely a whisper. You have to believe me, I did not know. I looked at him. At that man who had been my baby, my boy, my son, and I did not know what to say because there was so much pain, so much betrayal, so many lies. I do not know what to believe anymore, I said finally. And that truth destroyed us both. Attorney Stone waited for us all to calm down. Then he took out the last envelope from the chest. This one was white bigger than the others, with 2 names written in gold letters, David and Daniel. This is the last letter, Stone said with a soft voice. Mrs. Emily asked me to read it only after everything else. After all, the truth came to light. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside were several sheets of thick paper full of that perfect handwriting of Emily. The lawyer cleared his throat and started reading. My 2 men. If you are hearing this together, it means you finally know the truth. The truth about everything. He paused. And it means I have to face my responsibility. I ruined you both. The words floated in the air like smoke. David, I took your son from you. Your only son. I took years, moments, birthdays, graduations, hugs, conversations. I took the opportunity to be a father. And I left you in poverty while I lived in abundance. I wiped my tears, but they kept coming out. Daniel, I took your father from you. And not only that, I filled you with hate. I poisoned you against the only man who loved you unconditionally. The lawyer continued reading. It was all for pride, for fear, for stupidity. Emily's voice through Stone's words sounded broken. I was afraid you would judge me, that Daniel would hate me if he knew I destroyed our family for money. So I built a lie, and that lie became my prison. Stone turned to the next page. I lived 25 years with that lie, watching how Daniel became bitter, watching how he rejected his father, and I could not say anything, because if I did, my whole world of lies would fall. Daniel was sobbing with his face between his hands. But then I got sick. And when you know you are going to die, priorities change. Emily wrote. I did not care about looking good anymore. I did not care about pride. I only cared about one thing, fixing what I broke, even if it was too late. The lawyer paused to drink water. We all waited in silence. The weight of Emily's words crushed us. That is why I modified my will, continued the letter, not only to punish Daniel. That would be cruel and simple. Stone turned to another sheet. I did it to force you to see the truth, so David would know it was not his fault, so Daniel would know his hate was misdirected. The following words surprised me. The $223 million are not only for David. I looked up suddenly. There is a trust for Daniel. The lawyer took another document from the envelope. $50 million separated, protected for my son. Daniel also raised his head. But Stone raised his hand, but with conditions. Conditions that are not negotiable, he read from the letter. Daniel can only access that money after 5 years, 5 full years, and only if he complies with all the following. The list was long, specific, thought out carefully. The lawyer read the conditions one by one. First, complete a rehabilitation program for gambling addiction. Certified. Minimum 1 year. He looked at Daniel. Second, pay everyone he defrauded with interest. The list of victims is attached. There was a long list of names and amounts. Third, get a real job with a salary and keep it for 5 years without exceptions. Stone turned to the next page. Fourth, attend psychological therapy, individual minimum, twice a week for the full 5 years. Daniel listened, without moving. Fifth, meet with his father David at least once a week, every week without fail. Stone looked at me. And the last condition. He paused dramatically. Rebuild his relationship with his father. Not pretending, not acting, really trying from the heart. The lawyer closed the document. If he complies with all this, the $50 million are his at the end of the 5 years. If he fails in any of the conditions, the money goes to charity institutions. But there is something else, said the lawyer, returning to the letter. A condition that does not depend on Daniel. It depends on you, David. I sat up straight in the chair. If you press criminal charges against Daniel, the trust is automatically canceled. Daniel loses everything. Not just the $50 million, but also the opportunity to redeem himself. I felt the weight of the decision falling on my shoulders. If you forgive him, if you do not press charges, Daniel has this last chance. A chance to become the man he could have been. The man I did not allow him to be. The letter continued with Emily's voice. David, I know I am asking for something impossible. I know it hurts. I know it is unfair. But I ask you on my knees, give our son one last chance. The chance I never gave him. The chance you always wanted to give him. My hands were shaking. Do not do it for me. I do not deserve anything. Do it for the boy he was. For the boy who hugged you. For the boy who told you, I love you, Dad, before sleeping. I could not contain the tears anymore. Nobody could. Inspector Vargas stood up. Mr. David, I need your answer now. His voice was formal but not cruel. Do you press charges against your son for attempted murder? The question floated in the air. Everyone was looking at me. Daniel, with red eyes, waiting. Henry, my friend, who saved my life. Pamela, who took care of Emily. Norma, who kept the letters. Attorney Stone, waiting to execute the will. And I could only think about everything. The 14 unanswered calls. The cold floor of my kitchen. The years of loneliness. The humiliations. The pain. But I also thought about other things. The boy sleeping in my arms. His first steps. His laugh when I threw him in the air. His hugs. His voice saying, you are the best dad in the world. Everything that could have been and never was. Because of lies. Because of Emily. And yes, also because of Daniel. But he had been poisoned since he was a child. Raised with hate. Manipulated. How much was his responsibility? How much was the others? I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. Not the monster who left me to die. Not the man who humiliated me. I looked deeper, and I saw the scared boy who had believed his mother's lies, the teenager who waited for calls that never came because they were intercepted, the man who married a killer without knowing, the son who lost 30 years hating the wrong person. It was not an excuse. None of that excused him. But it was context, and that context mattered. Daniel looked at me without hope, as if he already knew my answer, as if he had already resigned himself. I do not want the money, Dad. His voice came out broken. I do not want anything. I just want... His voice cracked. I just want you to look at me without hate. Just once before they take me. Tears were running down his face. I want you to look at me and see your son, not the monster. Just your son. And something inside me broke, or got fixed. I do not know, but I felt something change. I do not hate you. The words came out before I could think them. I never hated you, Daniel. Not a single day of my life. My voice was trembling, but I kept talking. I missed you. You hurt me. You destroyed me. But I never hated you. I stood up slowly. I walked toward him. Because you are my son, and one does not hate a son, no matter what he does. I knelt in front of him. We were at the same level. I am tired, son. So tired. Tears were running down my face. tired of hate, of pain, of war, of loss. I put my hand on his cheek. He shuddered. I do not know if one day we can be father and son again. I do not know if you can fix what you broke. I do not know if I can forgive completely. I paused. But I want to try. I want to give you the chance your mother never gave you. The chance to choose who you want to be. Daniel sobbed and let himself fall against me. And for the first time in 30 years I hugged my son, and he hugged me, and we cried together. For everything lost. For everything broken. For everything that could have been. Inspector Vargas waited for us to separate. Mr. David, I need a verbal answer for the official record. I wiped my tears. I looked at the inspector, then at Henry, who had tears running down his rough face, then at Pamela, who was smiling and crying at the same time, then at Attorney Stone, who waited with the pen ready, and finally I looked at Daniel. My son, my only son. I took a deep breath. No, I said with a firm voice. I do not press charges. Daniel stifled a sob. But on one condition. I turned to him. A condition that is not negotiable. I looked him straight in the eyes. You are going to fulfill everything your mother put in that will. Everything. Without excuses, without shortcuts, without lies. My voice hardened. You are going to rehabilitate yourself. You are going to work. You are going to pay whoever you owe. You are going to go to therapy. And you are going to see me every week. I paused. Not as a son asking for forgiveness. As a man rebuilding himself. As a man proving he can change. The inspector nodded. All right. It is on the record. He looked at Daniel. Mr. Alverde, you remain under judicial supervision. If you fail any of the conditions, you face immediate charges. Understood? Daniel nodded. Yes, understood. Attorney Stone closed all the folders. There is something else before finishing. He took out another document. Mrs. Emily left specific provisions about the rest of the inheritance. He read slowly. Of the 173 million remaining for Mr. David, 30 million are assigned to Pamela Lara. Pamela let out a gasp. For my daughter of the heart, read Stone with a soft voice. The only one who took care of me without expecting anything. The only one who loved me when I was most alone. Pamela was crying inconsolably. Use that money to build the life you deserve, and to keep being the beautiful woman you are. The lawyer looked at Pamela. The documents are ready to sign whenever you want. She could only nod, unable to speak. Stone continued. 20 million for charity institutions specified in the annex. 10 million for Norma Castle and the other employees who took care of her with loyalty. Norma put her hands to her mouth. And the rest, 113 million for Mr. David Alverde, without conditions, so he can do whatever his heart dictates. He passed me the papers. I just need your signature. 6 months later. I no longer live in that apartment in the old neighborhood. Linda, my sister, insisted I move to something better, but I did not want something flashy. Just a quiet place with 2 bedrooms. One for me and another in case one day Daniel needs it. He hasn't used it yet, but the door is open. On Sundays without fail, we meet at a coffee shop. Not the same fancy cafe where we used to go when he was a child. A simple coffee shop in the arts district that makes good coffee and asks no questions. The first time was weird, uncomfortable. We did not know what to say to each other. We sat down, ordered coffee, and stayed quiet for 15 minutes until I asked, "Did you see the game yesterday?" And he answered, and we talked about soccer. Only about soccer, nothing deep, nothing emotional, just soccer. The second week was a little easier. We talked about the weather, about food, about nonsense, but at least we talked. The third week he arrived with dark circles under his eyes. I asked him if he was okay. He told me nights were difficult, that he could not sleep thinking about everything. He said no more, and I asked no more. But we were there together in silence, and that meant something. Daniel kept his word. He entered rehab the day after the reading of the will. A center upstate. He was interned for 3 months. I went to visit him once. Only once. Not to talk. Just so he knew he was not alone. When he got out, he got a job at a hardware store. Yes, a hardware store. Mr. Edward Ramirez, the owner, is a friend of Henry. He gave him a chance. Daniel works Monday to Saturday, 8 hours a day, selling nails, paint tools. They pay him minimum wage. He lives in a small apartment in a modest complex. 2 rooms, no luxuries. Henry says he sees him arrive every day tired, dirty, with hands stained with paint. But he arrives, and the next day he goes back. And that also means something. He goes to therapy 3 times a week. With Dr. Miranda Castle, she called me once. She asked me if she could speak with me. I said yes. She told me Daniel is fighting, that there are good days and very bad days, that he still has impulses to gamble, that sometimes he hates himself so much he does not want to get up, but he gets up, and that, she told me, is what matters. Last Sunday when we met at the coffee shop, Daniel arrived different. I do not know how to explain it. Lighter, maybe. He sat down, ordered his black coffee with sugar, and he took something out of his backpack. It was a manila envelope, old, folded. "I found this in Mom's boxes," he said with a soft voice. "Norma gave me permission to check what was left in the house before they sold it." He pushed the envelope toward me. I opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of photographs. Daniel as a baby in my arms. Daniel at 3 years old on my back in the park. Daniel at 5 with his first bicycle. Me by his side smiling. I looked at them one by one. I did not know Emily had kept these photos. I thought she had destroyed them all. "There is more," said Daniel. He took out a notebook. Her diary, from when I was a child. I opened it to a random page. Emily's handwriting filled the pages. Daniel asked for David today. I told him he was traveling. It hurt me to lie to him, but I do not know what else to do. Another page. David called again. He wants to see Daniel. I told him no. Daniel cried at night. I think he knows something is not right. I closed the notebook. I could not read any more. "I read the whole diary," said Daniel. "It took me 2 weeks, and every page showed me everything we lost." He looked at me with red but dry eyes. He did not cry so easily anymore. I think he ran out of tears. She knew it was wrong from the beginning, but she kept doing it. He paused. "Do you know what is the worst part? That a part of me still loves her, and I hate myself for that. I understood that, too well." "You do not have to hate her to understand that she was wrong," I told him. "You can love someone and still recognize they hurt you." He nodded. We stayed in silence for a long while. Then he asked, "Are you ever going to be able to forgive me? Really? I mean not just this." He pointed to the coffee, our weekly arrangement. "Are you ever going to look at me and not remember everything I did to you?" The question hit me hard, because I did not have an easy answer. "I do not know," I said honestly. "It still hurts me. I still wake up sometimes with nightmares of the heart attack. I still remember your face when you humiliated me in that restaurant." I paused. "But I also remember other things. And I am working on that." He nodded. He seemed to understand. "I used the money as Emily wanted. Not for me. Well, a little for me. I bought new clothes. Shoes that do not hurt me. I paid for the house Linda always wanted. She cried so much I thought she was going to have a stroke. I paid for Henry's hip surgery. He had been waiting 3 years for it because he did not have insurance. Now he walks without pain for the first time in a decade. I gave Pamela a job at the foundation. I created the Emily Stone Foundation for women leaving abusive relationships. Pamela runs everything. She is good at that. She has that rare combination of firmness and compassion. We opened 3 centers already, in the city and other states. Norma handles the finances. She is better with numbers than any accountant I could have hired. And the rest of the money is invested generating interest to help more people, to build more centers, to do something good with all that pain. Because if I learned something from all this, it is that pain can destroy you or it can transform you. And I chose the second option. Yesterday was Sunday again. Daniel arrived at the coffee shop, but this time he brought something else in his hands. A frame. Small. Wooden. He put it on the table. It was a photo. The photo. The 2 of us when he was 5 years old. Me carrying him on my shoulders, both of us smiling, happy. "I had it restored," he said. "It was stained, torn, but a man downtown fixed it. The photo looked perfect. The colors revived, the faces clear. I took it from the letters, from the ones you sent me." He touched the frame carefully. "I read them all. Each one. It took me weeks." His voice cracked a little. "And in every letter, in every damn letter, you told me you loved me, that you missed me, that you were waiting for me." He looked at me. 30 years, Dad. 30 years telling me you loved me, and me thinking you had forgotten me." He pushed the frame toward me. "This is for you, so you remember that not everything was bad. That there was a time when we were happy." I took the frame. I looked at the photo, and I smiled. Despite everything, I smiled. "And now, what do you feel?" I asked Daniel. Because I needed to know. I needed to know if all this was serving for something. If the pain made sense. If the decision to forgive had been correct. He stayed thinking for a long while, stirring the coffee that was already cold, looking at the cup as if it had the answers inside. Finally he spoke. "That I lost 30 years." His voice was soft but sure. 30 years hating the wrong man. 30 years building a life on lies. 30 years. His voice broke. 30 years that I am never going to recover. He looked up. His eyes were different now. Clearer. More honest. "And I do not know if one day we are going to be father and son again like before, like when I was a child." He paused. "But I know I want to try. And I know you do too. And maybe that is enough. For now." I nodded. Because he was right. We did not know what was going to happen. We did not know if this would work. But we were trying, and that was more than we had 6 months ago. I do not know if one day Daniel and I will be father and son again. Really, I do not know. Maybe yes. Maybe it will take us years, but one day he is going to call me without it being Sunday. He is going to call me just because he wants to talk. He is going to come to my house without an agreed date. He is going to hug me without it being forced. And I am going to look at him without it hurting, without remembering everything bad. Only remembering the good. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe this is all we will have. Coffees on Sundays. Superficial conversations. Uncomfortable silences. An honest attempt that goes nowhere. But at least now, when we look at each other, there is no longer hate. There is no longer that poison. There is only tiredness, sadness for what was lost. And maybe, just maybe, hidden very deep, a little bit of hope. A small, fragile, scared hope, but alive. And sometimes that is enough. Sometimes hope is all we have. And I learned after all this that you have to hold on to it. Because if you lose hope, you lose everything. And I already lost too much. And you? What would you have done in my place? Leave it in the comments. I really want to know. If this story touched your heart, give me your like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now. Every day there is a new story that could change your way of seeing things. Thank you for being there. See you in the next story.